Hello and welcome to this brand new channel. My name is Nicholas Yee and I'm a cello player or cellist. I've been playing cello for almost all my life, and you may have even seen some of my videos over on my other channel called Nicholas Yee. I've been posting videos on YouTube for actually about 10 years now, and I really love doing arrangements, covers, soundtracks, pop songs, really just kind of engaging with the current cultural context and things that I enjoy. I don't really talk on that channel, but I really like talking about this stuff in general, so I thought I would just make this new space to have some of these discussions and dive into some of the things that I really enjoy. In November, Netflix released a new show centered around a protagonist that plays the cello. You might have heard of it. And leading up to this show, I was really excited. I actually don't know if Wednesday has historically always been a cellist, but I had seen a poster for this show that basically just had the silhouette of Wednesday holding a knife and holding her cello. Yeah, that kind of started the hype, and then of course I saw Wednesday playing the cello in the trailer for the show. What I didn't expect was that the show would be this big of a hit. Apparently it's one of Netflix's most watched shows ever. And I also didn't expect that there would be this much cello in the show, or that it would be integrated this well. So I was really pleasantly surprised to see that. Cello isn't often an instrument that takes the spotlight. Growing up as a cellist, it was always the violin players who would get the solos, who would get the fun parts to play, and the cellists were always a little bit in the background. And even in movies, cellos are often in the background, maybe shown for a couple seconds. I can think of at least a couple recent movies where there's very prominent scenes of cellos being destroyed, but that's about as much of the spotlight as they get in those movies. So yeah, it's really cool to see the cello take the spotlight in this show, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at today, some of the cello playing and cello music in Netflix's Wednesday. So starting off with the main theme, the musical themes for the show, of course, were composed by Danny Elfman, legendary composer and longtime collaborator of Tim Burton. He's brought that dark but whimsical and adventurous style to so many Tim Burton projects as well as other films. So it was really cool to see that here, and I think it's such a great fit. Yes. Okay, this isn't really talking about cello right now, but I have to mention this beginning of this main theme is really cool because it's kind of a callback to that classic Addams Family theme song from the 60s TV show, which is also where the snapping that they do in the show is from. If you heard it, you would definitely know it. It's that da-da-da-dun. But that triplet figure, ascending triplet figure, is used really cleverly here in the beginning of this theme. It's just there enough that you recognize it and it feels like a signature callback, but it's over and done with really fast, and it's right into this kind of more, like I said, dark but whimsical theme. It's a great way of taking this beloved property and kind of bringing it into the modern age. Okay, and there's that awesome cello riff. I love that they put this in here because, of course, Wednesday is a cello player leaning into this distinct feature that they've introduced for the character. I feel like that has to be a callback to Danny Elfman's Spider-Man theme. Maybe that's kind of like an ostinato that he's used a lot in some of his compositions, that kind of I feel like there's something really similar in his theme from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and right when they start playing that is when the spider goes on the screen here. So I feel like that has to be some kind of callback, and I love it. Yeah, honestly, I feel like that's a perfect theme. Like I said, incorporating the cello in there, it gets its moment to shine, that distinct kind of riff, and then there's some lovely string work later in the theme as well. Okay, so here's the scene that everyone's been talking about, and it's probably because it's the most prominent showcase of cello playing in this show. And of course, Jenna Ortega, who plays Wednesday in the show, gets to show off her cello playing skills, making all the lessons that she took worth it. So yeah, let's check it out. Yeah, this is awesome. First of all, the arrangement is great. Much like the show itself, it's just the right amount of darkness and edginess, but it's also a lot of fun, and it's got a little bit of camp to it. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And of course, the song that they're covering, Painted Black, just perfect because obviously black is Wednesday's thing. Okay, so this isn't really going to be a critique or breakdown or anything about how accurate the playing is. If you're interested in that, fellow cellist Wendy Law actually posted a really cool breakdown on her channel, so definitely go check that out if that's kind of what you're after. I think actually the cello playing that they're showing is really good. Obviously, maybe the notes aren't the exact notes that are being heard, but they've got the rhythm matched really well. Clearly they knew what they were going to be putting in the soundtrack here when they filmed, which I think is pretty miraculous when it comes to like coordinating shooting schedules and basically needing to plan the soundtrack that far in advance, that you have the cello part arranged, that you spend months teaching it to the actress, and then you have that all ready to sync up when you're filming in this like multi-million-dollar production. I think that's actually really impressive, and I think most shows where you might see cello or other instruments, there's definitely not that level of planning and foresight. So this is one part that confused me a little bit because it definitely sounds like the cello strings are being plucked here, but the way they show it is that Wednesday's still holding the bow. I really like the variety in this arrangement where they kind of change it up every few bars. It's always on to the next thing. It never gets too repetitive. I think that's what makes it so fun. You know, it's possible that they just changed that afterwards, but they had already filmed everything according to what the previous arrangement was. I guess it's possible that they're saying the sound is being created by the wood of the bow hitting the string instead of the hair of the bow hitting the string. That's a technique that's called collegno, and anyone who's played in an orchestra knows that when you see that on the page, you kind of roll your eyes and you dread doing it because it hurts inside to be hitting the bow on the string. It feels like you're damaging, well, you are damaging the bow and damaging the cello. But a similar sound would also be created when you pluck a string really intensely. When it snaps back, it actually ends up hitting the fingerboard. That, I guess, also kind of hurts inside a little bit because you also feel like you're damaging the instrument. But pizzicato, I think, is actually one thing about the cello that can potentially be recreated with samples or virtual instruments. A lot of more lyrical pieces would be really hard to fake with samples or virtual instruments. Could be that they just have a sample library of strings being plucked pretty intensely and snapping back and hitting the fingerboard, and that's just what they've used here. But it sounds really good, and it adds a lot of really liveliness to this scene. Okay, so those arpeggios there. I've heard some people say that those are actually like impossible to play. My friend and fellow cellist Jeremy Tai actually had put out this challenge where he was offering $250 to anyone who could play that. Turns out I guess they're not impossible because he actually got people submitting it who were doing it. But I guess the way you hear it in the show actually is impossible, where each note is so clearly articulated and separated from the other and 100% in tune. If you listen to the videos of people actually playing this, there's a lot more, multiple strings being hit at the same time. You can hear the shifts happening, and I actually really love that. The way they have it in the show here, it actually has, I think, less energy because it's played so perfectly, whereas when you hear a real cellist playing it and going at it with a lot of intensity to to nail this passage, that energy, you can hear it. It comes through and it sounds amazing. So I'll give some kind of link there in the description if you want to check those out. I just thought it was really interesting. And I definitely wouldn't be able to play these. Yeah, I love that heavy double stops there. I think this arrangement is showing so much of the range of textures that you can get out of the cello. And yeah, I'm just really happy to see the cello being showcased this way in such like a mainstream show. Right there, I think, is maybe where she nails it the most. Obviously, again, I'm not talking about the specific fingerings, but I'm talking about how much of your body is involved with playing the cello. You know, she's really getting her shoulder into it and kind of just feeling that pulse, which is really the experience you get when you're playing the cello. Yeah, everyone in the school can hear her playing, I guess, because she's playing outside on her balcony. That's pretty confident move, I guess. When I'm practicing, I don't want anyone to hear me. If you're gonna play something that you don't know is gonna sound really good, it's nerve-wracking to play it and know that someone else is listening. And obviously, they're not actually judging you, but you're kind of projecting your own insecurities onto them. But obviously, Wednesday is nailing this performance here, so I guess it's a well-earned confidence. Yeah, this is what we wish people thought when they heard us practicing. And this is an amazing performance by Gwendoline Christie in this role. She's just the right amount of over the top, and I've already said this, but like the show, it's just the right amount of over the top.
No, I don't really feel better.
Okay, well, I don't know how you wouldn't be able to feel better after playing that amazing performance. But I guess Wednesday is supposed to be in high school here, or maybe in middle school. I don't know. I remember when I was that age, I really didn't like practicing. I mentioned that I've been playing cello most of my life, since I was 4 years old. And most other string players that I know also started when they were pretty young. So usually it's something that you grow up with. And when you're kind of in your teen years, obviously, it's all about growing into your individuality, exploring who you are and what you want and what you're deciding for yourself. You know, not practicing when you've been regularly made to practice or been held to that routine your whole life is just a common way of trying to find who you are and kind of rebelling against what you're told to do. So this is, I think, very true to that.
How the hell did you get that oversized violin out the window?
Yeah, classic experience of a cello player, people not knowing what to call your instrument. Big violin or oversized violin, probably the most common one. I remember I was in an airport with my cello one time, taking it through security, and one of the people working at airport security saw the case and just with complete confidence said, "Is that a bass or a harp?" He knew it was one of the two, I guess. But yeah, the cello being mistaken or misnamed, just part of the cello player experience. It makes me really happy that so many people have gotten interested in the cello from this scene. I think it showcases the cello in a really cool way, and I think a lot of cellists are really happy about that too. I really enjoyed seeing the cello community kind of come alive and really be energized by this moment. I also did a cover of the song Painted Black after watching Wednesday. I couldn't resist. So yeah, you can check that out on my other channel if you're interested. Okay, now we're going to the scene of Wednesday playing cello in the town of Jericho, where she's part of this band performance slash assembly that's happening here. Everyone's like so bored and cringing. This is like, I think this is a super accurate, high school band portrayal. Usually I think you wouldn't see a cello player in the band, but like I said earlier, cello players are kind of in the background. You don't always get really interesting parts. So this is super accurate here, where Wednesday's just kind of like, she doesn't like being made to play this cheesy, really basic part. And yeah, her expression here is amazing. she's playing this really boring part here. I guess Thing is here to save her from playing this drab bass line, and I guess knowing what's coming, allow her to play something that's a better showcase for her virtuosity. The music they pick here is such a good fit. First movement from Vivaldi's Winter from the Four Seasons, and the opening has just got that frigid, tense, suspenseful feeling, and it's just a perfect expression of what Wednesday's trying to create here. This is a really hard piece to play. I would say it's probably even a really hard piece to fake correctly, and I think the movements here match it really well, like probably better than you would ever expect to see out of an actor who didn't play cello before being on this production. That part's really good, actually. Let me just watch that again. Yeah, the rhythm, that like distinct rhythm there, where we get into, I guess you call it like the hook of this piece. Yeah, the rhythm is completely correct there. And actually her bow hold, someone who's only spent 2 months learning the cello, it's better than mine. Yeah, again, that's just such a perfect choice of song because it's recognizable to enough people. Probably even if people didn't know what this piece was, they've heard it before, maybe in another show, maybe in a commercial. And it starts off with that really tense, suspenseful energy of the scene and ends with that kind of like doomsday, last descending passage and minor chord, which kind of encapsulates the dark, chaotic end of that scene. And yeah, like I said, this piece is really hard to play. It's definitely not something I would be able to perform doing any kind of proper justice to the music. But if you want to check out a couple of really good performances of this, you can look up Gabetta's version. It's got a really cool opening solo by this Baroque instrument called the theorbo. That's just such a great arrangement, and her performance of it is just so intense but so accurate and intricate. Yeah, I was just so blown away the first time I saw that video, and I've just kept coming back to it over the years, so I'll link that in the description. You can also look up Luka Šulić, who is one of the cello players from Two Cellos, who you probably recognize. He's also got a really energetic performance of this piece with a string ensemble that he arranged. And I'll also link that video so you can check it out too. Okay, we're going into another part of the soundtrack here that features cello really prominently. This one's actually another cover, but it's a cover of a Metallica song called Nothing Else Matters by Apocalyptica that they put into this scene. And it just is such a seamless fit in the show because of the amount of cello that they've already integrated into the soundtrack. Yeah, let's take a listen.
I don't believe in mandatory volunteer work, sugar-coated history, or happy endings. But most of all,
that like distinct minimal riff from the Metallica song just sounds so good on cello. When you pluck notes on cello, they don't reverberate out as long as they do when you play them on a guitar, but I think the sound just has like a lot more body to it. So when it's given the kind of space in an arrangement that it has here, it just sounds so beautiful.
One coincidence is just a coincidence. Two are a clue, and three are proof.
This arrangement is so good. Those like layered strings just somehow are like the perfect intervals for the right amount of texture, the right amount of dissonance, and it's just so satisfying. Oh, so the editing in this is so good too. Like when they cut to the sewing machine, that's right when the electric cello solo comes in, and the way it's cut, it almost feels like that slide up on the electric cello is like the whirring of the sewing machine. And when she snips the fabric at the end there with the scissors, it's right on beat. Yeah, that's gotta be one of the most perfect music placements maybe that I've ever seen in a TV show. The way it was edited in, the way it references Wednesday as a cello player as well as fits in with all of the other cello that's already been incorporated into the soundtrack, the way the arc just perfectly fits that montage and the narration that goes along with it, the space between the pizzicato right at the beginning, and then also when it comes down right at the end. But at the end, the amount of intrigue that it lends to the mystery and the information that's being revealed on screen. And then the cut to black right at the end with that kind of extra subtle like bass drum cinematic sound that they put in there. And then right back into the main theme, but it's in the same key as this Apocalyptica song. So it carries forward that same momentum into the credits. Yeah, so beautiful. And Apocalyptica, I think for a lot of cello players growing up, really represented that kind of like escape from the, more stuffy, rigid confines of the classical music scene. Seeing these musicians who are out there, covering Metallica songs and playing electric cello, but it sounded still so good and so smooth. And it was very liberating to listen to. I remember the first time I listened to Apocalyptica when I was in junior high is when their song I Don't Care came out. I had that on repeat so many times. I was just so inspired by, I guess, hearing the cello in that kind of context. Yeah, I remember one time I went to go see the symphony orchestra here, and during the intermission, I pulled out my iPod Nano and I was listening to that song that I just mentioned, I Don't Care by Apocalyptica. So yeah, they definitely inspired me growing up. Probably a big reason why I ended up doing arrangements and making YouTube videos. And yeah, it's just really, really gratifying to see them in this show that's centered around a protagonist who is a cello player in her teenage years. Okay, last scene here. This one's also of Wednesday playing the cello, but it's not Wednesday herself, the character playing the cello. It's actually Wednesday in a moving painting playing the cello. So there's this character, Xavier, in the show who has this power where he can paint things and basically bring them to life. And he painted this piece of Wednesday playing the cello, and here we see it playing the cello.
I can tell how you get lost in the music. I feel like it's the only time I get to see the real you.
Yeah, this is the iconic opening from Elgar's Cello Concerto. Another great selection of classical repertoire to include in this show. The Elgar Cello Concerto, I think, is just known as this more, I guess, mature, moody piece of music. It's the last famous piece that Elgar composed, so it's coming from that more, mature, reflective place in life. And it was, of course, popularized by Jacqueline, whose performance, I think most cellists would say, is still the definitive performance of this piece. So yeah, I'll put also a link to that in the description. Check that out if you're interested in knowing more about the cello world. Yeah, I would say this painting is actually really good in terms of how accurately it shows the cello posture and positions. Obviously the fingers aren't moving when they should, but the bow is moving when it should. But there's no way that Xavier here, who doesn't play the cello, would know how to animate something like that. So the fact that he got it this close is super impressive. Well, that's it. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end of this video if you're here. Hopefully you got a little bit of insight into the cello world and the cello music featured in Wednesday. And if there's anything else that you want to see from this channel, anything else that you want to watch or dive into together, let me know in the comments. I'm really excited about having this new space to share more about music, movies, soundtracks, cello, and I hope I'll see you in future videos. Thanks.